Look, two identical rubies.
Beauty from Circassia! Stop and look!
Hello, friends. How are you all doing? I hope everything is going well. As usual, we're back to enjoy the captivating storyline of a classic film. In this episode, I'll be discussing a box office hit from America titled The Robe, directed by Hendrik Hoster and released in 1953. The Robe is notable for being the first American film to utilize cinematic widescreen technology. So it's no surprise that this film received numerous accolades, including an Academy Award in its release year. The story revolves around a Roman military tribune during the reign of Emperor Tiberius, who ruled from 14 to 34 AD. At that time, the Roman emperor ordered his military forces to capture the followers of the Messiah in Jerusalem, believing that the new religion introduced by the Messiah could incite a rebellion. Curious about the excitement in this film? Without further ado, let's dive straight into the storyline. Enjoy watching.
In history, Rome, master of the earth.
In the year AD 18, the narrative unfolds in Rome, during an era when European civilization was dominated by the Roman Empire, led by Emperor Tiberius. The empire boasted the finest war machinery in Roman history, sending its military tribunes to safeguard its territories, stretching from the foggy northern seas to the ancient rivers of Babylon. The empire was supplied with tributes in the form of gold, food, trinkets, and silk. From the 30 small kingdoms it had conquered, the Roman Empire transformed into one of the largest kingdoms in history.
Not be pleased to see me.
At the helm of this powerful empire was General Marcellus Gallio, the son of Senator Gallio, a favorite politician of Emperor Tiberius. During this time in the Roman Empire, slavery had become a common practice. Wealthy traders would sell beautiful girls, or even entire families, fathers, mothers, and their children. Additionally, traders sold captured criminals to be trained as potential gladiators. One day, while Marcellus was browsing the slaves being sold in the market, he was momentarily distracted by a commotion caused by the escape of one slave who was attempting to flee from his master.
Thank you, Tribune. Thank you, Tribune.
This slave was named Demetrius, who was to be sold as a potential gladiator. At the market, Marcellus also unexpectedly encountered a beautiful woman named Diana. This captivating girl had been chosen by Emperor Tiberius to serve in the imperial palace as a gesture of gratitude for her father, who had been killed in battle. Initially, Marcellus appeared confused when the woman claimed to be his childhood friend, the one he had promised to marry. After remembering their shared past, Marcellus finally smiled with joy, realizing that the beautiful woman standing before him was indeed Diana, the one he had once loved.
Well, he'll be emperor someday, and would that matter?
12 years.
During Tiberius's reign, the emperor had a nephew named Caligula, the son of Germanicus and Agrippina the Elder. His father had been poisoned in the eastern region of Rome, and his mother had been exiled by Emperor Tiberius for accusing him of being involved in his father's murder. Caligula narrowly survived an assassination attempt. Because he was still considered a child, he was brought to the palace and raised by his uncle, Emperor Tiberius.
And why is Tribune Gallio in my pavilion? The pleasure of our loyal tribune is important to us.
From a young age, Caligula never got along with Marcellus. Being of the same age, the two were always in competition with one another. Young Caligula despised Marcellus for consistently outshining him in every rivalry. During an encounter at the Roman market, Caligula challenged Marcellus once again to a bet. This time, Caligula proposed a competition to acquire a slave through an auction system. The one who could make the highest bid would be declared the winner. Once again, Marcellus emerged victorious, successfully purchasing a slave named Demetrius with a higher bid than Caligula's. Marcellus then appointed Demetrius as his assistant.
A slave in this household is an honor.
Oh, yes, I know. In the great days of Greece, we...
We see the tension between Marcellus and Caligula, which leaves his father visibly worried. He warns Marcellus that his behavior could lead to conflict with the royal family. This fear becomes a reality when one of Caligula's trusted soldiers suddenly arrives to deliver a message to Marcellus. The soldier has been sent by Caligula to give Marcellus an official order. The letter states that Marcellus will be reassigned to Jerusalem, where he will assist Governor Judea in suppressing the rise of a new religious cult led by a man referred to as the Messiah.
You know what my ambitions have been for you. Our legions there are the scum of the army, the officers that...
Sent to the territory of Jerusalem, Marcellus found himself in serious trouble. His father warned him that his life could be at stake as he faced the uprising raging in the region. However, with no choice but to act, Marcellus led his troops to Jerusalem. He was approached by Diana, his childhood friend whom he had promised to marry, as she cried. Diana then urged him to return home safely. She promised to always remain faithful and wait for Marcellus until he returned to the city of Rome.
Odysseus? I came to tell you that I'm good.
In brief, the military cohort led by Marcellus arrives in the city of Jerusalem. They are greeted by the centurion commander, and Marcellus immediately asks about the Messiah, who has intrigued him due to the way he has influenced so many people in Jerusalem to willingly become his followers. The centurion commander then explains that for the followers, the Messiah is believed to be the savior of humanity. They oppose the belief in the many gods that the Roman Empire has long upheld. This is why Emperor Tiberius has tasked them with eliminating this new cult, as it could lead to division and rebellion within his territory.
Sire, what's that? Kings. Thanks for the kind wish, Centurion.
As his troops began to enter the city of Jerusalem, Marcellus caught sight of the Judeans running to greet a man riding a white horse. This was the figure known as the centurion commander named Messiah. Meanwhile, Demetrius, who had been appointed as Marcellus's assistant, stood frozen as he gazed at the Messiah. His friend urged him to leave, but Demetrius declined. He then told his friend that the gaze of the Messiah seemed to beckon him to follow.
I was over there.
He stopped here.
One night, as Marcellus's entourage was celebrating a feast hosted by Governor Pilatus, Demetrius, who overheard the conversation between Marcellus and the centurion commander, appeared restless. Upon realizing that Marcellus and the centurion were planning to capture the Messiah, he made a daring decision to flee, abandoning his master Marcellus. Demetrius intended to find the man referred to as the Messiah in order to warn him that the Roman troops were planning to arrest him. In a dimly lit corridor, Demetrius encounters a man sitting dejectedly. The man is named Judas. He informs Demetrius that the Messiah has been betrayed by his beloved disciple. At that moment, the Messiah is facing Governor Pilatus and is awaiting his sentence. What will he receive? With a sorrowful expression, Judas advises Demetrius to do everything possible to protect the faith of the followers. If the Messiah must face the death penalty from the Roman emperor, it is crucial to save their belief. With a weary body, Demetrius takes a step forward. He feels that it is all too late now. This realization hits him hard upon learning that the Messiah has already been captured by the Roman soldiers. In his last effort, Demetrius asked his master, Marcellus, for help in getting the Messiah freed from all charges in court. However, with a curt tone, Marcellus refused his assistant's request. He reminded Demetrius to forget about the man named Messiah. As per the laws of the Roman Empire, whatever decision the court made was an irrefutable truth. After undergoing the trial held by Governor Pilatus, the Messiah was ultimately sentenced to death for supposedly spreading beliefs that contradicted the convictions of the Roman people. As his punishment, Governor Pilatus decided to execute the Messiah by crucifixion. A week later, the Messiah was taken to Golgotha, a cliff known as the Skull Hill. The governor centurion assigned Marcellus as the executioner who would carry out the sentence on the Messiah. The new religion was tortured, led, and forced to carry a wooden beam that would serve as his place of crucifixion. Meanwhile, Demetrius, who attempted to thwart the execution, ultimately found himself powerless after the Roman soldiers successfully incapacitated him. The Messiah eventually died after enduring horrific torture, with his head crushed by a circle of sharp, barbed wire. Meanwhile, Demetrius, who witnessed the execution firsthand, could only weep. His heart firmly believed that this death penalty was a mistake. With a heavy step, Demetrius picked up the messianic robe that lay beneath the body. He then approached Marcellus and his soldiers, who were engrossed in celebrating the execution by gambling. As the commander of the centurion took the messianic cloak from Demetrius, the initially bright sky suddenly turned dark and overcast. When the messianic cloak was laid down as a bedding mat, a storm with heavy rain suddenly erupted, wreaking havoc. This forced Marcellus and his troops to decide to return to the city of Jerusalem. However, an unbelievable incident befell Marcellus when he requested the messianic cloak held by Demetrius. Suddenly, Marcellus appeared to panic and was filled with terror. He felt as if the cloak were choking him. In a spontaneous reaction, Marcellus threw the cloak away. Since that incident, Marcellus has suffered from mental and psychological disturbances, prompting Emperor Tiberius to decide to send him back to the city of Rome. However, upon arriving in the city of Rome, Marcellus's mental illness worsened. He spent most of his time alone and appeared scared when approached by his girlfriend Diana, who was worried about his condition. Concerned, Diana reported the situation to Emperor Tiberius. She hoped that the Roman ruler would help restore Marcellus's mental health. Marcellus was eventually brought before Emperor Tiberius. When they met, the emperor immediately began to interrogate him, asking about the events that had traumatized Marcellus after his return from Jerusalem.
Just.
I told you so.
Initially, Marcellus appears confused about how to recount the events he experienced. However, under persistent pressure from Emperor Tiberius, he begins to narrate the chronology of when his troops executed the Messiah on Golgotha. After the Messiah was killed on the cross, a fierce storm suddenly struck the city of Jerusalem. Marcellus explains that the storm was somehow connected to the death of the Messiah. He recounts how, after donning the robe of the Messiah that he had taken from Demetrius, he felt an overwhelming force as if it were seeking to punish him. Upon hearing Marcellus's confession, Emperor Tiberius seeks counsel from his advisors to help explain the phenomenon that Marcellus experienced. Two of his advisors then inform Emperor Tiberius that Marcellus has been affected by the sorcery embedded in the fabric of the Messiah's robe.
Yes, sire.
Find this robe and destroy it.
After receiving input from his advisors, Emperor Tiberius suggested to Marcellus that he find the cloth and destroy it. The emperor and his two advisors believed that if the cloth was destroyed, Marcellus would be cured of the mental disturbances he was experiencing. Emperor Tiberius even promised to provide unlimited resources to Marcellus to ensure his mission would proceed smoothly. Marcellus ultimately decided to follow Emperor Tiberius's advice. He resolved to return to the city of Jerusalem. The first person he sought was Demetrius, as his assistant was the last one to have handled the cloth, allowing Marcellus to blend in with the people of Jerusalem without raising suspicion. To do this, Marcellus disguised himself as a wealthy merchant.
Wait.
Upon arriving in the city of Jerusalem, Marcellus immediately sought out the merchants. He intentionally bought items from them at twice the normal price. Naturally, the merchants appeared very pleased. However, while Marcellus was surrounded by the merchants, he was approached by a middle-aged man named Jonathan. He asked the merchants to return the excess money from Marcellus's purchases and only take what was a fair price. Jonathan then advised Marcellus that his purchases, which only benefited one side, were contrary to the teachings they received from the Messiah. Impressed by the attitude shown by this man of change, Marcellus decided to give a gift, a donkey for Jonathan's grandson.
Grandfather? You are one of us, Euban. I'm fine, thank you. Are these your donkeys? Fast, go! Grandfather, look, I'm gliding!
One day, Marcellus met a beautiful woman whose legs could not walk due to her curiosity about the teachings brought by the Messiah. Marcellus then asked her if the Messiah possessed magical powers, why he couldn't heal the woman's legs. With a smile, the woman explained that the Messiah was not a magician. He only taught love and compassion for others, as well as faith in God. Upon hearing her response, Marcellus grew even more doubtful about the teachings of the Messiah. Logically speaking, he thought, if the God referred to as the Messiah truly existed, why did he not help the Messiah when he was dying on the cross? Marcellus then chose to walk away from the woman.
I used to wonder at that myself. No one's holding you, Marcellus.
In short, Marcellus finally discovered Demetrius's hiding place. He immediately confronted his former assistant. Marcellus then ordered Demetrius to burn the cloth that held the Messiah's image, which had been kept by his former assistant, believing it to be cursed. Using the tip of his staff, Marcellus attempted to take the cloth with his sorcery. At that moment, an unimaginable event befell the Roman general. Marcellus seemed to see the face of the Messiah as he kissed and embraced the cloth. Suddenly, his fear vanished, and his heart felt liberated from the burdens that had tormented his soul. Realizing this, Marcellus genuinely regretted his actions and wept for having killed the Messiah. From that moment, Marcellus decided to become one of his followers. Although he knew that if Emperor Tiberius found out about his decision, he would be sentenced to death, guided by Demetrius, Marcellus was introduced to Simon Peter. A fisherman from Galilee, Peter was entrusted by the followers as the apostle destined to continue the Messiah's mission of spreading love to humanity. However, as Jonathan gathered all the followers of the Messiah, he suddenly fell to the ground after an arrow shot pierced his chest, killing him instantly. The atmosphere turned chaotic when they realized that the area had been surrounded by Roman troops led by a centurion.
But it's no longer in effect. Tiberius is dead.
Seeing the Roman troops surrounding the followers of the Messiah, Marcellus tries to hold them back. He then presents a letter of assignment from Emperor Tiberius that he still holds, hoping that the centurion commander will call off his troops. However, the centurion commander rejects the request. Laughing, he informs Marcellus that Emperor Tiberius is already dead, and his power has been replaced by Caligula, who has just been appointed as the new Roman emperor.
Split more men from head to foot than you see in this square.
With this.
With no chance to save the Messiah's followers, Marcellus challenges the centurion commander to a one-on-one duel. If he wins the duel, Marcellus demands that the centurion commander free all the Messiah's followers, as he does not want to lose face in front of his soldiers. The centurion commander accepts Marcellus's challenge. In the ensuing battle, Marcellus manages to defeat the centurion commander. He ultimately succeeds in freeing the Messiah's followers from the siege of the Roman army, which is forced to retreat after its commander is defeated by Marcellus. One day, Peter invited Marcellus to join him. He and Demetrius would travel from Greece to Rome to spread the teachings of the Messiah. Hearing this offer, Marcellus looked confused. He informed Peter that he felt unworthy to be a follower of the Messiah. Noticing Marcellus's distress, Peter then asked him what made him hesitate to accept the love taught by the Messiah. Marcellus finally revealed to Peter that he was the one who had killed the Messiah on the cross. Upon hearing this confession, Peter told Marcellus that the Messiah had already forgiven him long before the Roman commander had crucified him. Faced with this truth, Marcellus made a vow. He would devote all his wealth and soul to become the first Roman commander to follow the Messiah.
Can I do less?
Unfortunately, when Petrus and Marcellus arrived in Rome, Emperor Caligula managed to capture Demetrius. He then summoned Diana, Marcellus's beloved. Emperor Caligula informed Diana that Marcellus had betrayed his country and had become a follower of the heretical cult brought by the Messiah. With this information, Caligula hoped that Diana would help him locate Marcellus's hiding place. However, Diana rejected Emperor Caligula's request. She decided to leave and seek out Marcellus in his hidden refuge. After discovering that one of her servants had become a follower of the Messiah and knew the location of Marcellus's hideout, Diana made her way out of the palace. Eventually, she found herself reunited with her cherished Marcellus. In her hideout, Diana tries to persuade Marcellus to leave the followers of the Messiah and return to the palace. Hearing her lover's words, Marcellus attempts to explain to Diana that everything he has done has become his destiny in life. To save his beloved, Marcellus suggests that Diana go back to the palace. However, due to her immense love, Diana chooses to stay with her lover. For her, there is no happiness in life if she must be separated from her soulmate.
I want to be your wife, whatever you believe.
I owe him a great deal.
Unfortunately, the Roman troops had surrounded the entire region of Rome in order to save Demetrius from the pursuit of the Roman forces. Marcello instructed Demetrius to leave him behind while he would distract the Roman soldiers to prevent them from chasing the chariot carrying Demetrius. For him, Demetrius's safety was more important so that he could help in Simon Peter's struggle to spread the teachings of love and compassion to humanity. Marcellus was eventually captured by the Roman forces and thrown into prison. He was deemed a traitor to Emperor Caligula, who was in power at the time. A week later, he was sentenced to death by Emperor Caligula. In the end, Marcellus was brought before Emperor Caligula for the last time. The emperor gave Marcellus one final chance to free himself from the death penalty.
Glory that he made anyone a cripple, or ever raised his hand. His robe? He wore it.
Emperor Caligula promising that if Marcellus bows at his feet, he will grant him a high position in the palace. However, once again, Marcellus stands firm in his beliefs. He prefers death over abandoning the teachings of the Messiah. Meanwhile, Diana, his beloved, decides to share his fate and face execution alongside Marcellus. She cannot bear the thought of suffering and being left behind by him. In the end, both Marcellus and Diana meet their tragic end by hanging after rejecting Emperor Caligula's offer to live a life of luxury and wealth in his magnificent palace. Thus, the story concludes.